Hi, this is Carla Ray Thompson, and this is Unsolicited Opinion, Food for Thought, Fueled by Facts. Episode 3. This week's Food for Thought. What do you do when a member of your team becomes a superstar and goes from us and we to I and me? What do you do when a supporting player starts giving main character energy? And the subject of this week's closer look is Law Roach, former celebrity stylist, recently retired from the game of serving those who serve the looks. Before we get to Law, let's get to this. So if you listen to episode 1 of Unsolicited Opinion, Food for Thought Fueled by Facts, you would know that anyone and everyone can become famous, or widely known, as Miss Nene would say. And I talked about some things you should consider if you were to become famous, infamous, or widely known. So let's imagine, and I know it won't be hard, that you are a star on the rise. You pick a profession. And since I'm a sports lover who's mad about March Madness, and I actually watch the Super Bowl, not just for the halftime show, I love a good sports analogy, and I know that it takes teamwork to make the dream work. So I ask you, who is going to be on your roster? Who do you want on your team to take you to the championship, to your Super Bowl, your Final Four, to help you cross that finish line? Who you choose to be on your team is going to determine when, how, or even if you reach your goals. So what is your role? You are the head honcho, the guiding force for all, the GM, the team owner, and the coach. And the team members are there to serve your needs as you are to serve theirs. Yes, you serve their needs. Love is truly a two-way street. Surprise, surprise. This is especially true in the very beginning when you're on the come up and don't have much to offer them in the beginning other than $1 and a dream, as the old lotto commercial in New York used to say. So it's finally important that you be clear about what you need and what they need in order to do their best, and make sure that both can be accommodated. In fact, this level of clarity has to happen before you select the people you're going to work with, the people that are going to make up your team. But also remember to always be flexible. Inevitably, those needs will change, but you also have to be clear about what your hell knows are. Things you say, okay, this I'm not compromising on. So the bottom line is it's all about clarity and communication. So you pick the perfect team, perfect for you, and your star begins to rise, as does theirs. It's all good until dun 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 dun. So what do you do when one of your team members becomes bigger than the team, a superstar, a celeb in their own right? The we has become me. Can there ever be an I in team? And what effect will it have on you and your brand? Enter recently retired celebrity stylist, self-titled image architect, and media personality Law Roach, the subject of this episode's closer look. In my work as a celebrity photojournalist, aka Paparazzi, I've seen a lot of celebrities prior to stardom, well, in the beginning stages of stardom, stars on the rise, as you would say. Like Ashley Graham, who was a model before becoming a supermodel, and actress Priyanka Chopra Jonas before she became a Jonas, and Meghan Markle before she met Harry. Add to that list Emmy Award-winning actress, style icon, and former Disney star Zendaya. But I'm not going to really focus on Z, but one of her support staff, a member of her team who played his position well. So well that he became a superstar, someone who elevated the celebrity styling game. Law Roach, who recently announced his retirement from celebrity styling. Like Ashley, Meghan, and Priyanka, I got to see Law just before his star really started to rise. It was sometime after the Oscars and before Celine, as in Celine Dion. I've seen his humility turn into, I guess what you call hubris. He lost weight and gained a lot of hair and a little bit of an ego. But you don't go from good to great and from great to go without believing in yourself. And yes, law is the GOAT of his profession. With that said, I want to address one thing. Much has been written about Law following the announcement of his retirement. A lot of these articles talk about his being, quote unquote, difficult behind the scenes. Personally, I don't believe that he was any more or less difficult than anyone else who is in the fashion slash entertainment industry of his comparable status. Sometimes writers will throw out this word, quote unquote, difficult, and others like it. It's like a wink, wink, you know what I mean? But honestly, I don't know what you mean. I'm going to need you to explain with details, please. But of course, they won't, the fashion writers and the blind item readers. All I can speak on is what I know and what I've observed. I won't be talking in code or speaking in tongues. The purpose is not to slander or deride, but to ask the questions and to look for the lessons that may be there for you and me. What can we learn, if anything, if we are faced with similar challenges? Here's my once upon a time with Law Roach. I met Law back in 2015. I had been a celebrity photojournalist, aka Paparazzi, for about 2 years. Paps, for the most part, especially back then, were freelancers. And it was back then a pretty crowded field. And I was always looking for new opportunities, new ways to make money. And often these opportunities involve going off the beaten path. There were no A-listers, too much competition, way too much effort for very little profit in the long run. I just like to make my money the smart way. I like for my time, whatever time I put into something, to pay off. Also, going after A-listers involved the chase, the follow. They don't like to say the word chase. And I can't do much of that on public transportation. And I don't dare bike in New York City. You have to navigate a gauntlet of cars and cabs and a lot of clueless pedestrians. So instead of chasing the Brads and Angelinas, I often photograph Black celebrities, subjects my fellow paps always told me never sold. Interestingly enough, I was told this by other paparazzi of color, Black and Latino paparazzi. But they do sell. Yeah, it's not a question of if a photo is going to sell. It's really a question of when and for how much. By the way, my photos did sell. Back then, back in 2015, popular Black bloggers needed photos, and I, of course, was happy to fulfill their needs. Okay, back to that night in 2015 when I met Law Roach. It was spring, April to be exact. I was waiting in what seemed to be pitch black darkness. It really wasn't that dark, but it was dark for New York City standards. I was waiting outside of a building where Bravo's Watch What Happens Live was being recorded. Brandy and R&B singer Jasmine Sullivan were guests. I was by myself that night, no fans and no other paparazzi were present. I think I have to say this, while I was waiting, I wasn't hiding behind a bush or behind some kind of potted plant. I never did that then, and I don't do it now. For the average celeb, that kind of behavior is totally unnecessary. Watch What Happens Live host and executive producer Andy Cohen left first. He still had his dog Waka and wasn't a papa yet. That was years away. I always took a photo of Andy and Waka, either entering or leaving the building. I was one of the first to do so. I say one of, just in case there's somebody else who may have done it also back then. When my colleagues saw what I already knew, that magazines love celebrities and their pets, they started taking photos of Andy and his dog as well. Andy always gave up the shot, as they say. He never avoided the camera. He smiled and walked confidently, with Waka leading the way. He created the perfect photo, and all I had to do was take it. Done, done, and done. It's been damn near 10 years and a whole pandemic since that evening, and I'm pressed to remember exactly how it happened, how I met Law Roach. I think it's pretty safe to say that Law, who was then styling Tamar, Braxton, Zendaya, and Brandy, approached me prior to Brandy and Jasmine leaving the building. Yeah, the fact that he probably introduced himself to me is far more likely because he wasn't that guy then. And he more than likely asked me to take a photo of Brandy and Jasmine as they were leaving the building, which I agreed to do. Brandy was about to make her Broadway debut and become a local media darling, and I was about to get a peek behind the curtain of celebrity style. When Brandy and Jasmine left the Watch What Happens Live building that night, they created the perfect photo. They looked like two girlfriends. They could have been leaving the club or a fancy restaurant. Brandy is such a pro in so many ways, and she has a knack, like Andy, for creating the perfect publishable shot. I showed Law the photo in camera, and he loved it. He gave me his number. He told me he also styled Zendaya and might give me a call to get some candids of her while she was in town. By the way, that photo of Brandy and Jasmine, it was published on Essence.com, and Law was more than pleased. As I was thinking about how I met Law, I had to recreate the timeline to figure out where Z was, Z as in Zendaya, was in her career. She had her iconic Oscars moment. That happened in February when red carpet reporter Juliana Rancic made an unfortunate remark about Zendaya's hair, which Zendaya took as racially derogatory. I'm not going to get into the details of that whole affair. What I did notice and what did happen as a result was that Vogue took notice and made the young Z their de facto red carpet it girl to watch. And Law, her stylist, who I found to be at that time very respectful, mild-mannered, and very businesslike, was on his way, but far from there yet. That would come later. That would come next year, when he started styling a certain celebrated songstress named Celine Dion. I was not new to Z. I had taken photos of her at a previous Fashion Week event, a couple of events, and Law was by her side as well as her dad. And Z was really young back then, and her photos were more likely to be published in teen magazines as opposed to regular, People or the regular fashion magazines. And those magazines tended to pay a little less, actually a lot less. That's just a little FYI. With that said, to get to do setup shots is a pretty good and highly coveted gig. You get the call or text to be at a certain location at a certain time. You wait for the talent to leave or arrive, and in New York City, that often happens from a hotel or an event. The talent often knows you'll be there, but you need to clarify that with whoever called you first. It just makes for a smoother process if the talent is, quote unquote, in on it. You take the photos, you submit them for approval if that's required. They pick the ones they want, and you delete the rest. You may or may not own the rights to the photos. I own all of mine. You may or may not get paid. I never received a dime. What I did get was a good clean photo or photos, an easy shoot. I could submit them to my photo agency for sale and use them indefinitely for whatever purpose I choose. And every cent I make is my own. Stylists like Law can initiate the requests. It could be the brands, also PR, management, the talent themselves, photo agencies like Getty Images, Backgrid, Splash, Shutterstock. And speaking of Splash, they are rumored to have worked closely with the Kardashians back in the day. So, okay, back to Law. So I did receive a couple of those texts, calls about photographing Zendaya. So I went to the hotel to take photos of Z as she was leaving for media appearances. I took the photos. Her father was there, said nothing to me. Okay. Z only spoke when I think once I said thank you, and she gave me a seemingly shocked, "You're welcome." With that said, I was never formally introduced to either one of them, Z or her father. Law himself said very little to me and was strictly all business. And Law at this time wasn't the Law that we know now. He wasn't out front and center. He kind of played his position. He was always sort of behind Z and, her dad. Her dad was the person who was like by her side all the time. Her mom also traveled with her as well. If there was any hint as to Law's true ambitions back then, he hid them very well. Or so I thought. But there was something he said to me back then that really stuck with me over the years. Something in retrospect that clearly showed his hand. There was another pap that Law'd work with unbeknownst to me. It's not like he has to consult with me or anything. And this guy also photographed Zendaya. Cool. Like I said, Z never really said anything to me. The dad never said anything. It's kind of low-key, mugged me, whatever. I just want to say I'm always polite to a fault when it comes to working with or photographing young talent. I always defer to the parents. I always try to make all parties feel as comfortable as possible. Okay, Z had an appearance at the View. I photographed her leaving her hotel. Then I went to the View to take another photo of her just in case she made some kind of wardrobe change. Different set of clothes equals different set of photos equals additional sales. Okay, so I take a photo of Z leaving. The other pap pulls up, and I think he either takes a photo of Z as she's getting into the car, or Z has gotten into the car and she leaves the car and poses for a photo for him, and he takes the photo. I'm not really sure about what transpired exactly. Like I said, it's been a pandemic and about 10 years since all this has happened. But this is what I do remember. Z and her dad were greeting this pap like they were besties, like someone who was clearly invited to the cookout and could bring the dish of his choice. So I was like, okay. I was starting to get into my feelings, as they say, which is not a very good place to be. So I thought maybe they would have warmed up to me if I had more contact with them or had been formally introduced, but I doubt it. Okay, so me and my bruised ego approached Law. I told him that perhaps because Zendaya and her father seemed so chummy with the pap, let him be her sole photographer. I'm sure I was trying not to be salty and failing miserably. Law said this to me, that he was the one who made the decisions about who photographs Z, not her parents. He chooses the photographers, and I essentially was not to worry. Fast forward years later, Z's parents are nowhere in sight. And where is Law? On the red carpet next to Z, a part of her inner circle. He has appeared in ad campaigns with her, and he sat next to her on the front row of coveted couture fashion events. I'll get to a little later how such an event was a catalyst for Law quitting the styling business. Okay, Z's press run ended and she went back to California. I did continue to work with Law, not with Brandy, but with Tamar. Yes, Tamar Braxton, the reality star, the over-the-top personality. Tamar had a fashion line which Law helped her out with. I got the call, took the photos, they were published, and that was that. And about Tamar, she was the nicest. She was like shy almost, cooperative, took direction extremely well. Absolutely nothing like her public.com image. Law would return to LA, and I wouldn't see him until the following year, 2016, when he became him after getting the call to style Celine Dion. I would get my last text from Law in 2016, and it was to photograph Celine leaving her hotel. I missed that text, and so did the other pap Law used to work with. And that was the last time either one of us heard from Law again. Law would later go on to have a successful career as both a stylist and a media personality, and both Law and Zendaya became equally as accomplished in their respective professions. Then one day, rather abruptly, it stopped. The celebrity stylist part, the service part, the playing second fiddle to celebs part. Law Roach announced his retirement from celebrity fashion styling. So what was the catalyst for Law's retirement? I don't know for certain, but my guess is it was a video from a fashion show. It actually was a Louis Vuitton fashion show that was widely circulated. That was kind of an embarrassing moment for Law, or at the very least, the optics of it weren't great. Z and Law arrive at the show. Z takes her seat in the front row between Emma Stone and a fashion executive. There's no seat for Law, who's like I said, normally sits next to Z. Law's looking around, lost, like, where's my seat? And Zendaya, who's engaging the people next to her, points to the back of her, like, oh, back there somewhere. Like, why don't you get a seat back over there? Like I said, optics, not great. I don't know what happened after that. Some say that Law was seated in the front row, but not next to Z. But I haven't seen any photos proving this one way or the other. Law did give a very long-winded explanation in one of his many, many post-retirement interviews that really didn't explain exactly what happened. By the way, seating at these events, seating at these fashion shows is not some kind of random thing. This is not general admission. All this is very orchestrated. How do I know this? Well, I used to watch Hell on Earth, Kelly Cutrone, fashion PR, person extraordinaire on Bravo, and she would rant and rave and worry about the seating charts for the fashion shows. Okay, I knew something was up when I saw photos of Law leaving the Louis Vuitton fashion show with Zendaya, and she was wearing those, if you remember, those cute little shorts. And he was walking behind Z, looking rather somber, actually rather sad, wearing this bright yellow outfit. So I knew something was up. Every TikTok fashionista has given their take on this moment. So here's my take. Like I said, the optics were bad, awkward to say the very least. To a lot of people watching that video, it looked like Zendaya was dissing Law, like putting him in his place. Yet Law did nothing to immediately dispel any of these conjectures. And pretty troubling to me is that when Law announced his retirement, he never notified Z of his plans. And he had been with Zendaya since she was 14 years old. In fact, the only person throughout this whole thing that we've ever heard from is Law, who has done multiple interviews. And according to him, she had no clue of his plans to retire from styling. He's droned on and on about his dissatisfaction, about how he's been treated by the industry, while still maintaining that he and Z are the best of besties. Like I said, Z has never said anything publicly about the runway show or about Law's retirement. And what concerns me, and what I find kind of troubling, is that all the talk surrounding the video made Z to look like she was a meanie, and this is at first, a meanie on one hand or a moron on the other, someone unable to dress herself. So many people were saying that Z needs Law. What will happen to Z? How will she look? She can't go back to her horrible style, to what she was wearing back then when she was a Disney kid, not realizing that Law dressed her back then when she was a Disney princess. In all the fashions they said, or people say, that they didn't like. He is that same guy who dressed her when she was there, as well as at the top of her game, as a fashion fave. The only difference is that Law gained access to better garments, and you can thank Celine Dion for that. I don't claim to know anything about Z and Law's relationship, but I just was thinking that, should Z at some point, before all this became what it became, at the very least a series of sort of awkward moments, said something to Law, or should someone in her team have said something, have alerted to her to what might be coming down the road? It's important to have team members who are adept at telling you what you need to know and the manner in which you can hear it. I don't know, maybe she could have checked in with him. His needs clearly changed from the beginning. It seems like he needed more extrinsic rewards, like a seat next to her at the fashion shows, fashion awards, magazine covers, very public recognition. And Z could have taken that time to evaluate, like, does his changing needs fit into my needs as I grow and move forward? And if we can't find a happy medium, if my needs can't really mesh with his needs, how can we have a smoothly orchestrated uncoupling that leaves our reputations relatively untarnished? No drama. In other words, you go your way, I'll go mine, no hard feelings, yet we are grateful for the time we've had together. Both could have done separate or joint Instagram posts, conferring with one another regarding the language first, and just explaining this conscious uncoupling, this amicable uncoupling. But what you have now is Law saying, we're still good. She's still my sis. I'd never leave her, but I'm not going to style her. Or anyone else, for that matter. Interestingly enough, Law has never really come out to say, oh, I'm not styling Zendaya. It's never really stated, only inferred. I often wonder what's going to happen when Z has to choose another fashion stylist. How will Law react? He's known Z and her family for years. Will he weaponize the relationship if he feels he's been left out, feels disrespected? He's been in control, this aspect of her life, for a very long time and has had sole control. Not even her parents had real input. Remember what I said before. Watch out when the us and we's become I's and me's. So what can Z do now? She could have her own in-depth interview, tell her own side of the story. No law slander, only love for the guy who helped her get to where she is today. But she can establish herself as a fashionista who knows her stuff, who is not some man's muse, who can dress herself, who knows her own style. And this would be an opportunity for Z to express who she is in her own voice, as an actress and as a fashion icon. Plot twist. It was recently announced that Z would be a house ambassador for Louis Vuitton. You know, that same Louis Vuitton where that whole runway show kerfuffle happened. Maybe, more than likely, Z knew this was in the works and didn't want to speak on the events of that day. Maybe this is Z's way out, a crafty uncoupling that requires no admission of complicity. Nothing needs to be said, done, and done. If so, well played, Z. Well played. I've said enough. Maybe I've said too much. It takes teamwork to make the dream work. So choose wisely. Superstars come with super egos, which you have to navigate if you feel it's in your best interest to do so. You also have to know when and how to make a cut or a very conscious uncoupling when you need to. Well, that's it from me for now. I'm Carla Ray Thompson, and this is Unsolicited Opinion, food for thought, fueled by facts.